Skepta is one of the bigger names in grime music right now. His last album, which came out in 2016, Konnichiwa, was really successful. He had some big hits from there. I liked Konnichiwa. I thought it was pretty decent, some great tracks on there, and just showed how much potential he had to take grime to the next level, honestly. On the album he collaborated with people like Pharrell, which is very different for what you would usually expect from grime music, to be honest. And even since then he's collaborated with loads of different artists like Drake, Playboy Carti, A$AP Rocky. Like, it's been really interesting to see how he's just expanded his horizons, and there's no limits to who he will collaborate with. And he's been pretty damn great on most features I've heard him on, honestly. Like, I've been excited to see where he'll take his sound and what he'd do with his next album, since all those features have been so damn good. But unfortunately this album, Ignorance is Bliss, is just whatever. It's kind of just, he's not really, he's just not impressing me that much across this thing, man. Honestly, the best thing about this album for me is the beats and the production. Like, Skepta doesn't really impress me on many of these tracks at all, if honestly any. He's doing his thing, he's rapping pretty fine. On the first track I'd say it's the best one, especially lyrically. But yeah, that's kind of the issue across the whole thing. Like, his bars, his rhymes are just so weak, which is something I just did not expect to say about Skepta. The hooks across this thing, really quite weak on almost every track, to be honest. Skepta doesn't really put in the best hooks here. He does bring on a few guest features, and guess what? These guest features are actually probably the worst thing about this album. Aside from the Boy Better Know track, and maybe J Hus on the What Do You Mean, there is like nothing good about these features. You've got really awful out of place auto-tune singing from Nath Smalls on Grease Mode. Really just sucks everything out of that track. And I'm not saying that what he's doing here is not welcomed. It could have worked if it fit the track, but it just doesn't, because Skepta's on a completely different wavelength to that hook. That hook comes in and it feels like a new song. Same issue I think on Love Me Not, to be honest. Pretty weak hook overall, although it isn't anywhere near as bad as Grease Mode. Animal Instinct, I just feel like I'm listing off tracks here for the sake of it, because pretty much the Achilles heel with all of the tracks I'm naming are the hooks. And then you've got Red Rum as well, which Skepta performs the hook here, and this hook is terrible. I'll slap you like Ike Turner. Not only did he think this was a good line to write down and rap, but he chose it for the hook, so he says it multiple times on the same song. This guy thought I'll slap you like Ike Turner was worthy of saying like 4 or 5 times across a song. In fact, even more than 4 or 5 times. He must say even more than that. Like, it's not even that it offends me, you know, the idea of this line. It's not offending me. It's just a terrible line. Like, why would you use this as your hook? I can't believe it. The beat on this track is, like I said, the beats and the production on most of the tracks are pretty damn good. And the beat on this one especially, like, he's really riding the beat on the verses, and he just gets this chorus. It's just so weak. It's frustrating because there are tracks where there aren't a single guest feature inside. There's not a single guest feature. And these are the tracks where he's at his best. You Wish, this is a good track. The chorus, I think, is pretty damn good as well. He's got some pretty witty one-liners as well on this track, more so than across the whole thing. I like that "come second" line. That's a pretty funny line. Just sounds like he's a bit more in his element. Like, whenever a guest feature comes through, I don't know, he's just kind of shaking off his game. It's either that he feels like he needs to match to whatever they're doing on the hook, or he's just kind of holding back a little bit. It's kind of odd. Like, it's a shame, because I just know he can do way better than what he's doing across this thing. It's not like you can just, you know, ignore some of the hooks and think, oh well, it's a banger, it hits hard. Not really. Like, some of the production is quite creative and playful at times, but these tracks aren't bangers. They're just slightly upbeat at points. Sometimes they're really quite fast-paced. His flows do speed up every so often, but I don't know, I just feel like he's rapping the same way on every track. Like, you hear one and that's just how he's gonna rap and deliver all of his lines on every single song. Like I was saying earlier, like he has been quite surprising with his features since Konnichiwa, with the people he's been working with and how good he's been, and you just kind of get a bit of a shock thinking, wow, Skepta's really doing some cool stuff, where you don't really get any of that on this album. On the intro track Bullet from a Gun, he is quite introspective, and he is quite like self-aware and conscious across this whole track with a lot of his lines and a lot of his thoughts. But it's not like that translates to every track across the album. Like, I feel like it leads you to think that you're going to get something completely different to what you end up getting. I wouldn't have minded this laid-back, thought-provoking, filled with wisdom Skepta for the whole album, but you don't really get that. The overall sound of the album is very cohesive, but I just feel like Skepta himself is just all over the place with this thing in terms of his lyrics, his themes. He doesn't really stick to one idea. Like I say, with all like the hooks and stuff, which is separate to what Skepta's doing, but they do really take you out a lot of these tracks. Gangsta is a funny song though. I do like this track. I think all the people from the Boy Better Know collective do a pretty funny job with a lot of their verses, especially JME. Just reminding me of how much I want a new JME album, man, because it's been an even longer wait since that album than it was with the last Skepta album. It's ridiculous. That came out in 2015. 2015, mate. Where you been? Where he's talking about people are just being really fake because of the way they act gangster and stuff, and the clothes they wear, and they end up looking like F1 drivers because of all the brands and shit that they're wearing. Man, that's funny. One of the wittiest and funniest and charismatic grime artists working right now, and I think Integrity might be the grime album of the decade, to be honest, because Ignorance is Bliss doesn't even come close. Closing track does not feel like a closing track to me whatsoever. It doesn't really end things on a particularly high note or anything that sort of like ties anything together. It just feels like the album could have kept going from here. It's very odd. That gingerbread man line as well, Christ. Skepta's just not impressing me with this one at all. This is a pretty disappointing album from Skepta, I'm not gonna lie. This did not do much for me at all. Whether it be the fact that his rhymes just completely go over your head throughout the entire thing, the lack of cohesion in terms of the lyrical themes or anything like that, the lack of exciting bangers. Like I say, some of the beats are really impressive, but they just don't hit hard enough for me to ignore the lyrics, you know what I mean? Like, they're not bangers on their own. You can see that Skepta's not making banger after banger. So then you think, oh, well, I'll pay attention to what he's saying, and he just doesn't drop anything interesting at all. Hook's incredibly weak throughout, the features really subpar. Yeah, I'm gonna go 5 out of 10, really quite disappointed with this one. Let me know your thoughts if you've heard this and if you think it's way better than I'm giving it credit for. That's absolutely fine if you prefer it to me. Let me know. Thank you for watching my review. Have a good day. JME, please come back. Goodbye.